are now listening to the Dad Rules Podcast with your hosts, Mario E. and Kid.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Dad Rules Podcast, where we help you dad better. I'm one of your hosts, Mario E. and Kid. What's going on?
Not much, man. Let's get to the topic.
All right. So today we're here to talk about not the game, but practice. We're here to talk about practice, man. Remember Allen Iverson, that famous and he went on. But anyway, today's episode topic is practice makes perfect. Kid, you want to start us off?
Yeah. I think, when we all think about practice, I think we all know you have to practice to be great. I mean, that's taught, ever since you were a little kid, playing Little League or whatever the case is. You always knew that if I give my best or I practice, I can achieve some of the goals that I want to achieve. Sometimes you may come up short. Sometimes you may get those goals, but we do know that we can make our personal best when we do practice and we put in the time and we get used to doing the things that we're going to be doing in an actual game or whatever the case is. But I understand that a lot of us are not currently playing the sports for a sport team anymore. As fathers, we live in life, okay? And the things that we want to do for our families. We want to provide for our families. And I just started thinking about, in high school, I played football and basketball. And then in college, I played Division III basketball. And from all the coaches and stuff that I had, seems like they would always kind of tell you, run the plays over in your head. The plays that we go over on practice before the games, go over those same plays in your head and visualize yourself making that tackle. Visualize yourself making that shot. Visualize yourself making that big play. And when I thought about that, I said, man, even though physical practice is important, but that mental practice is just as important. And I think about now in my life as the times that I'm game planning and legacy building for my family, all the gems and all the great information that I have gathered over the last few years on how to obtain financial freedom and build on wealth and setting up a legacy so you can have something to leave to your kids and going out here working hard and not always working harder, but working smarter.
Mm-hmm.
And all of those things that I've learned over the years, it's like a constant replay going on in my mind. Okay, this is what I need to do. I need to do this first, then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to be able to do this, and that's where I'm going to be where I want to be at. Right. Okay, the next day, I still go over that same game plan. I might tweak some things around or say, hey, this is another avenue that I can get to where I want to be. This is another avenue where I can get to how I want to provide for my family. And once I start thinking about those things and how day after day, I play these strategies in my head, it prepares me for when that business opportunity presents itself.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's almost instinct to make that purchase or make that business move to take my life to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm approached with those opportunities in life, I'm able to jump right in there without second guessing, without doubting myself, because I've constantly went over these strategies in my head. And it goes back to sports. When you do a play over and over and over and over again, when it comes to the game, you don't have to think about it. It's just instinct.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the mental part of practicing, repetition is very important to your development and for your kids' development. I think we have to teach our kids that it is very important for you to, physically practice things. But as you get older, it starts to become more of a mind thing. It becomes a mental
Hmm.
process, and building up that confidence. See, that's another thing people don't really realize, but practice builds confidence.
Absolutely.
Confidence is one of the most important things to have in life when you want to accomplish goals, especially crazy goals
Right.
or goals that people don't think that you can achieve. Having that confidence goes a long way.
That's
Confidence
right.
is how the little guy beats the big guy.
That's right. So David beats a Goliath because of
Yes,
confidence. Yeah. Yeah.
yes. And if you lack that
In a sports
confidence, and
in
on the
sport.
other end, if you have let's say you have all the physical traits, you have all the skill, but then you have low confidence, what good are you? From a physical standpoint, from a sports standpoint, you have nothing. So that
Mm,
stuff still translates into the real world. You have all these strategies, you have all this business sense, you have all this knowledge on what you should do, but you don't have the confidence that it's going to work. So what do? You crawl back into your shell and you don't go out there and attack your goals. You don't go out there and attack your dreams,
right.
you know? So, and another thing I like about practice is the work ethic piece for our kids. See, our kids from a very young age, they're going to tell you, Dad, I can't do it. Or Mom is just too hard, right?
Hmm.
But in those moments are the times that we have to build up their confidence and say, look, if you work hard enough, you continue to work hard at this, you're going to get better and you're going to be able to achieve that goal you want to. So then when they see that for the first time that I put the work in and this is the result that I got, I was able to accomplish my goal. I think that is like when the light bulb comes on for kids.
Yeah.
And you can constantly build on that into adulthood. I had a story about a guy I played ball with, and he was a pretty good player. Um, I think physically, he outmatched a lot of people that he played, and he was able to, you know, accomplish a lot of things, as far as accolades or whatever. But in him, he did just enough to beat everybody else. So you were physically better than everybody. You had your ability was, past everybody that you played.
Hmm.
Um, physically you were bigger than everybody that you played, right? But your mental was, I'm just gonna do enough just to get by.
Mm.
And I remember one time talking to the guy and he was just saying like, yeah, everybody says that you gotta do this and you gotta do that. And it don't take all that. Like, I just take this amount of time and I put it toward my craft and look what I can do, pretty much, what he was saying.
Hmm.
And I didn't think too much about it then as a kid, but then I saw the progression of him as an athlete and I saw that he never reached his potential.
Mm.
He got to great heights. I wouldn't say great heights, but I'm saying he accomplished certain goals.
Hmm.
But he just never, really lived up to that expectation that I think he had for himself and what everybody else saw that he should have
Right.
accomplished. I think he fell short on that. And I think it was just simply because um, he didn't have a grasp on work ethic, and he didn't have a grasp on the God-given ability that he had. That if I just give 100% into this, there's no limit on what I can do.
Right.
I think he just felt like, I'm good now, and everybody's gonna come try and recruit me or whatever, and I'm just gonna be good. And the people never came.
Mm,
I think that was a part of the reason, was that whole work ethic piece.
yeah. So
So
you saying that this guy, he lacked work ethic is what you're saying?
yes, so I don't think he really honed his skills the way he could have.
Yeah.
I don't think he practiced hard enough, and I feel like that really affected him.
So let me ask you a question. Let's say you got it. I know you've done coaching before.
Mhm.
What do you say to a kid? And I think coaching in sports, a lot of times you're giving life lessons to these young ones, right?
Yeah.
And so what do you say to a kid who does not have that work ethic, but they have all the skills and all the talent, and they may be what you would call a gamer, you know? And I know, I led off, I was talking about Allen Iverson. Now, Allen Iverson didn't get to those heights because he didn't practice.
Yeah.
We all know the story behind, most of us know the story behind that whole rant or whatever.
Yeah.
But, so what would your advice be to a kid if you're coaching a kid and he has all the tools and he would consider himself a gamer, but maybe that work ethic isn't there?
I
What would
think
you say to that?
I
To
think
that kid?
like me and you have talked about this before, but I feel like a lot of it is goal oriented. Like
Mhm.
you need to know where you're at, where you've came from, and you definitely need to know where you're going or where you're trying to go.
Right.
And once a player really finds out where they're trying to go, and this pertains to everybody in life. This is even outside of sports.
Exactly.
If you know where you want to be at in life and you know what you want to do in life, then your steps are already in front of you. So the question then is, am I taking the proper steps that I need to take to be at that level one day?
Hmm.
And I think that's one of the easiest ways to help a player, is saying, really, what do you want out of this? Because if you just want to play and have a good time, then what you're doing is okay. You know
That's
what I'm
it.
saying? But if you want to go to college and you want to get a scholarship, or you want to go to the NFL or the NBA or Major League Baseball, or if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a CEO of a big company, if you want to be a teacher, if you want to be a dentist, if you want to be a dental hygienist, whatever the case is, whatever you want to do in life, you got to know where you want to go and say, hey, the work that I'm putting in right now, is that going to get me where I need to be?
Yeah.
You
But you
know,
got to put in the work.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like, man, all through life, you're practicing.
Yeah.
You're practicing.
Yeah.
We're practicing every day. If you have a mindset to really be where you want to be, you're just practicing all the time. We don't look at it. Sometimes we just putting the work in, we're working hard, but you're practicing. You're practicing your craft. You're getting better. You're trying to get to where you want to be in life. And I feel like once you really realize where you want to be at in life, then you're gonna put the work in. I
That's
mean,
right.
if you want to be a music Mongol, if you want to be like Dame Dash or P. Diddy, whoever it is, don't you think you need to research what those guys did before you?
Exactly right.
Don't you think you need to know, okay, music is right here, right now, but where is music going to be at in the next 10 years? Where is it trending to? Don't you
Hmm.
need to learn the whole structure of the music industry? So when you're doing all that research and stuff, I look at that as practice to me. You're
Right.
practicing.
Yeah.
Because that's what you gonna eat and sleep that stuff all day long. Because I know, like with the goals I have right now, research is probably number one thing that I'm invested in right now. Is research. Research. And a lot of times it's hearing the same things over and over and over again.
Right.
It's like people like Kobe Bryant going to the gym and shooting 1,000 jumpers in a day. I'm going through that process every single time, over and over and over again until I perfect it. So that's why I feel like with us as fathers and being the head of household, that's what we're focusing on when we're legacy building is hearing valuable information over and over and over. And if you are, I mean, I'm just going to say it like this. If you're the head of household and you saying, hey, I want to have my family in a great position one day. I want to leave behind wealth to my family. I want to have a legacy with my family, right? But every time you go on YouTube, you're trying to find something that's funny. You always want to listen to something that makes you feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Something that makes you laugh. And you see, that stuff is just a distraction. Yeah, we all need to laugh, and I'm not trying to be that get off my lawn type of dude. We all do. We all like to laugh. We all like to see things that are funny. Yeah. But if that's the bulk of your information that you're consuming, or the bulk of your information is nothing but ratchet stuff, is this stuff building you up? Is this stuff helping you become a better person? Is this type of stuff helping you take the correct steps that you need to take to get to where you want to be? The question is no. It is a distraction to keep you where you're at. That's just how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Rant over.
No, I agree with that. I hear you. So it sounds like that what you're saying is that practice is merely just preparation.
I feel like.
Yeah. So that's what I think about. When I think about the saying practice makes perfect, I think about preparation. I think about from the sports side, I think about someone in the gym, like you said, like a Kobe Bryant type, shooting 1,000 jumpers in the gym. Mm-hmm. I think about, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, or Julio Jones running a bunch of routes, and catching, I don't know how many footballs a whole bunch of times, right? I imagine Tom Brady, as many Super Bowls as he has, as him being regarded as the GOAT, still getting out there and making passes, making sure it's crisp every single time. I imagine that's what I imagine.
And film study.
I also think
that's the mental aspect.
Yeah, exactly. And film study. Mm-hmm. I imagine that too, right? I also think about some of the best singers that we've ever heard. I imagine they just don't come up one day. They have some type of natural ability to be able to sing or dance or whatever.
Most definitely.
But they have to continue to practice. I imagine someone like a Jamie Foxx, who's I think is a tremendous actor, him having to practice, his routines, for his stand-up or to, an impression or what have you, practicing, perfecting it. So
the most talented man
the
in the industry. Most talented man in the industry.
Jamie Foxx?
Yeah, we'll go on that.
I'd agree with that. And we had we had a long discussion about that once before, but yeah, most definitely. I think, all round talent, yes, absolutely. Jamie Foxx is up there. Not too many can touch him, being able to do so many versatile things as he can as far as being talented, for sure. I think of that, right? I think about being prepared and constantly working on it. You said a lot of good things, as far as watching what you being careful of what you watch and what your true goal is. You can't sit around and watch a bunch of ratchet stuff and think that, you're just going to magically get better at something. I think about all those things, right? But it comes down to just being, to me, practice makes perfect is about being prepared. And that's one of the things that I try to instill into my kids. Uh, you know, I've talked about my son before, and he runs track. And you said something interesting, and I didn't know you were going there, but I had written it down to make sure that I kind of talk about it. So we had a regional track meet this past weekend, and uh, prior to this track meet, the week before, we have what's called Beast Week, where the coaches basically, they ran those kids to death all last week, right? I mean, every single day they had them running, every single day jumping, all the events that you have to participate in for the regional track meet. Uh, you had to do I don't know how many reps, and we were out there sometimes to almost 9 o'clock. From 6 to 9 o'clock practicing. Those kids getting all those reps in, right? And it's for a reason. And one of the things you talked about, I look at it like this, perfection versus PR. And PR, in the track sense is, sense for personal record, right? And one of the things I like about the coaches, what they do is they always stress getting a PR, right? Getting a PR because that makes you better. You may not, win the race, but if you got better, that's the goal. The goal should be to constantly, every single track meet, to get better, to get faster, to jump higher, to jump longer, to throw the discus a little bit further. Not necessarily my goal is to get a gold medal today. If you do that, great. Nobody's going to complain that you medal, but the goal should always be to PR. And so my son did 3 events in this past track meet. And during Beast Week, oh man, it was rough. It was rough. He had to run so many times, and it was just so rough. And we prepared him for it, ahead of time. We were like, hey, Beast Week is going to be tough. You remember how it was the track season before, where, it was really tough, but it's so that you get down to regionals and you do the best that you can, right?
Yeah.
And so my son, during Beast Week, he did everything that he could or whatever. He did his best during practice. But for whatever reason, when he had to do the long jump this past weekend on Friday, it just wasn't there. He didn't put it all together. And so he and we had a long discussion on to the hotel, about, hey, what are you here for? We coming down here to support you. What do you want to do? He PR, mind you, he PR'd for the in his long jump distance. But he was upset because he didn't medal as well, right? And he just didn't feel like he did as good as he could. Even though he PR'd, he felt like he left something in the tank. So we talked to him and we're like, hey, look, you got to get focused. You prepared. Don't get down there and get overwhelmed, So I was proud to see him on that next morning when he had to do the high jump, and you saw the confidence, all those things you're talking about, confidence. You saw the focus. You saw, him put it all together, and he qualified basically to go to Junior Olympics in the high jump, and he had a PR. Okay. And it was one of those things where you can't really, necessarily was is perfection him getting the best that he could have, or is perfection getting the gold medal. If you're saying perfection is getting the gold medal, he didn't do it, but he did PR, like I said, and he did the best. He gave the best of himself, and therefore, it gave him the opportunity to go to Junior Olympics. So, like I said, it's always this, this kind of thing between PR and being the best version of yourself and perfection. Because honestly, the way I look at it, perfection, nobody is perfect. And only one person is perfect, and we know who that person is, Jesus. But, that's not, we're not going to be necessarily perfect, right? But we can strive to be. And so that was one of the things I was definitely proud of him for, as far as, being prepared. I feel like I said, when I think about, practice makes perfect. I think about spending the time in, putting the effort in, putting the work in, spending those hours in the gym, perfecting your craft, being prepared. That's what I think about. And we talked about the entertainment side of things or whatever, but if you're a business person, if you're a writer, if you're some type of content creator, you still need to prepare. You still need to practice. We just talked about it. I could think of, before we started this podcast, we practiced for a lot.
Yeah.
We did a lot of practice sessions, and even when I go back and listen to or watch some previous episodes, I still look back and say, man, I could have said this a little bit better. I could have done this better.
Yeah.
But it's all about getting those reps in, being more conscious of what you're doing and having that practice. So that I definitely look at that. I look at that as something that it's constant. Practice makes perfect. Because you're not perfect and we won't be perfect, you're going to always have to practice, is the way I look at it. Because you're always trying to get better. You should have that mindset of getting better. How do I get better? How do I get better?
Yeah. And I think a lot of times we can just sit and look at our kids and it can really tell us a lot about practice and we can learn lessons from our kids. Because I know recently I've been faced with some things that I felt like I physically and mentally couldn't do. I just felt like I couldn't. But I just had to push forward and I was able to accomplish those goals. And I think about, like with Jonah with his swim lessons, which I talked about it last week. And I think about the progression of how they even do the swim lessons. And it's like he has the tube. Well, it's not a tube, it's a noodle that he swims with. And you're practicing how to swim. You're practicing how to kick your feet, how to move your arms through the water. And then everything is working to get to that goal.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Everything is working towards that goal. And then, like last week, she started working with him on how to float and like how to position himself for the backstroke.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So it's like even the little things he's been learning is like step by step by step by step. And I can see it. He hasn't started swimming yet, but I can see it happening.
Yeah.
And like I said before, it builds his confidence every time. Each time he has a swim lesson, it's building the confidence.
Yeah.
And I can see the fear of going underwater. I can see that slowly leaving.
Yeah.
Each time we go.
Yeah.
And his confidence is building each time.
Yeah. And you made me think about something else when you were talking about that. So the last practice before we went to the regional track meet, my son, Israel, he had to practice while everybody else was doing other things. And mind you, he's the only one on the team that does the high jump, right? For this year.
Yeah.
This year, he's the only person that's doing the high jump. And the coach made him practice so many times. Mm-hmm. Like I said, they were out there till about 9 o'clock, still practicing. It's getting dark, and they were still practicing every single time. And there's a certain way you're supposed to have your approach in the high jump, and there's a certain way that you're supposed to do the flop, where you're supposed to kind of roll your back or whatever and all that. And when I tell you that I was so proud to see him compete in the high jump during the regional track meet this past weekend, because his form, I could tell a difference in his form, and that was because of all that practice. And I was able to tell him, afterwards, I was like, hey, look, man, you did an awesome job, and you should have seen your form, and your form was exactly where it needs to be. Now, between now and the time we go to Junior Olympics, you're going to continue to work on your form. And who knows, you get down there, The goal is to PR when you get down there, and you may end up, getting the medal down there, and that'll be great. And it's always, and then I'm already kind of planting seeds for next year. Hey, and next year you're gonna come back. You can come back stronger, faster, and the goal is to even do better than you did next year. And so it's like you said, those little things, they build confidence. That practicing is gonna build confidence,
Yeah.
right? So that when you're in the game situation, you know what to do. Like you said, when you practice so much, it's one of those things where, okay, I've seen this before. I know what to do. I know how to handle this situation. I think about just to take it to a religious standpoint. Memorizing those scriptures is important because when you do face a situation, you do face a trial, or something happens, it's so that you put those scriptures into action, not just fold up and tuck your tail and
Yeah.
run the other way. You know what I mean? If you're memorizing scriptures about, God hasn't given us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind, those types of things. And then when something happens, it's like, I'm afraid. No, you don't have to be, right? Because you need to start to put that into action.
Yeah.
And so many times, people will memorize these scriptures because it sounds nice or whatever, but they may not put it into action. You got to do that. And that goes for not just in the spiritual sense, it goes for anything. When you got to remember why you're practicing. You're practicing so that when the heat is on, when the game is on, when it's game time, you perform. That's the purpose of practice. Whether that be something spiritual, whether it be something sports related, whether it be you're practicing your PowerPoint presentation for the CEO of your company, so that when you get there and that PowerPoint isn't working exactly how you thought it would, you're not getting flustered. You just calm. Okay, let me tweak this over here, and you can just speak to it without the presentation being there. So that you're prepared.
Yeah. And I think it's important for our kids to see that process of preparation. They need to see that you're not just jumping into everything cold feet, with no research, with no type of preparation, no type of foresight. They need to see you making logical decisions, and they need to see you preparing for whatever you have to face. And I mean, it can be even little small things like preparing for vacation. Because when you just jump up and you just go somewhere, okay, but then when you get there, you don't have the money that you need, or we can't do this because we ain't got this, or we can't do this because we didn't got this. Like, they need to see, like, okay, Dad, you said in December we were gonna go to the beach in July. You had time to prepare and get things in order. When y'all get down there, things are paid for and taken care of. Like, that's what, I'm just gonna be honest, that's what our wives want us to do. That's what our kids want us to do.
Mm-hmm.
They want things to be taken care of and organized. So,
Right.
guys, if you're unorganized, you can get organized. Just plan ahead.
Yeah.
Plan ahead and
That's
prepare
right.
yourselves for things that come up or things that you're planning on doing. Because if you are always unorganized and unprofessional, that seed can be dropped into your kids. And it's gonna make their lives
They're gonna see it.
if they're
They're
prepared.
gonna see that, and that's what they're gonna learn, and that's what they're gonna. You haven't shown them anything else. You've shown them how to be unprepared. You've shown them how not to be focused. You've shown them uh, being lazy or
Yeah.
being slothful, and
Yeah.
so
True.
unfortunately, they may grow up with that same tendency. So you have to be careful.
Yeah, full circle. Because that stuff is not only with your vacations, but then your kids will stop preparing for their tests in school. They knew that they had an exam for weeks now, and then they decide to study the night before.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be like that, guys.
Yeah.
teach them how to prepare. Practice, practice, practice. But yeah. You got anything else?
I don't, sir.
All right. Well, we thank you guys for listening to the Dad Rules Podcast. This is Mario E. and Kid, and we're signing out.
Thank you for listening to the Dad Rules Podcast with your host, Mario E. and Kid. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, follow and like us on Facebook and Instagram. You can find our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podcast Addict, Breaker, and Player FM. Till next time.